Okay. So in this video, we're going to open two shipments, one export shipment and one import shipment, and we're going to see any parts of every part and every section inside each shipment, and see how we can read the data in each of the shipments. So this one is an export shipment. So just to clarify it, when you see a shipment, by just double clicking on it, you can open the shipment, and it is how inside of each shipment looks like. So when you open a shipment, you want to know if it's an import shipment or export shipment. You easily look at this part and see if export is marked. You know that it's an export shipment, and if import is marked, it is an import shipment. So it might be a bit confusing, all the data that you see here, but to make it easier to understand, I will just separate each part of this page that you see and explain them separately. So first part is this is square that you see. So in here you see CNTN, which means container. So this is the container number of this shipment. In here you see 40. This is the size of the container. It's a 40-foot container. Under this, under the size of the container, you see the name of the shipping line. So this container number belongs to this shipping line, ONE line, one of the shipping lines. Here, you see the type of container. RF is reefer 40 foot. So in here, you see another number. This is the chassis number. So uh, as you see, chassis number is a bit similar to um, the
Container number.
container number, yes. But it's a bit different, and the difference is that chassis number contains 4 letter, but followed by 6 numbers instead of 7 numbers. This is the only difference in the number of digits, but they look quite similar. And we have different kinds of chassis. We have own chassis, we have POP chassis. POP chassis is basically, um, so let me start from that part. That as you know, containers are owned by shipping lines. Also, chassis have owners, owned by chassis providers. There are separate companies that they are just responsible to provide chassis, and they're called chassis providers. We have different companies, different chassis providers. They um, kind of had an agreement to have a group of their chassis in one category called POP, stands for pool of pool, that you can return those type of chassis that are in this POP category to any terminal. So once you are returning your loaded container for an export shipment, or returning an empty container after you unloaded your import shipment, you have to return that container, which is already on a chassis, to the terminal. So you have to leave the chassis in the terminal too. So if the chassis type is POP, you can leave that chassis in any of the terminals. If it's LBCT, if it's WBCT, APM, doesn't matter which terminal. If it's, as long as it is POP, you can leave it in that terminal. But if it's an own chassis, and own chassis are also um, categorized into different categories. You have to check if this chassis belongs to a chassis provider or a terminal or a company. Also, truckers have their own chassis. For example, our company also has many chassis owned by us. So we have to make sure we don't leave the chassis in that terminal because we will no longer be able to find them anymore in those terminals if we leave them there by accident. We have to be so careful about that. So if it's POP, there is no worries. We can leave it anywhere, any in any terminal. If it's own chassis, we have to check where we should return the that chassis. So if it's owned, we will return the container. Then we will check which company owns the chassis, and we will return the chassis in a separate location based on which company owns it. Uh, in here, you see the size of chassis. So always the size of chassis is the same as container. It cannot be bigger. It cannot be smaller. Um, so here is this part, and under here you see bill 2 name. This is if, as you remember that column that says bill 2, and under that there was a list of container I'm sorry, the list of company names that we are going to charge them for the expenses of that shipment. This is the part that the name of that company is mentioned. Also, the terminal that the container have to return to. The next part is this part, and on right of the on the right side of this part, you see some dates here, and you see two boxes here.
Mhm.
Um, Pre-note is a part that we write actually all the information all the information that you see in all these boards, all these lists in different tabs are written by us. So the way that we change this information you see in these lists is to open that shipment and enter the information inside the shipment, like here. So um, on the board, you see terminal appointment time. So if you want to add the terminal appointment time, you write it in here, pre-note. So this shipment, 48 385, has the terminal appointment time of 8 a.m. 8th of June. Let's check. You see, uh, 8 a.m. 8th of June. If I change
Mhm.
the date and time of the terminal number in that part, this date also will change. In here, you see pick up by, which basically means pick up the load. So for it's an export shipment we are looking at. So basically, we have to take an empty container, take it to the warehouse of the customer, and load the container. In another word, pick up the load. So, and this is trying to tell you what date and time we are going to be at the warehouse of the customer and pick up their load. So it's also at 8. And if we need to, so for import shipments, we had BL numbers. Let me show you again, just as a reminder. You see, these containers that we were checking on ready at port, on hold, and on vessel tab. These are all import containers. These are not export containers because these are loaded containers coming from different country like China, and the container is already loaded, and um they're coming with a vessel. But for export shipments, we don't have any containers coming with a vessel. We have a load, we have a cargo in warehouse of our customer, and we have to basically take an empty container from terminal yard, take it to warehouse and load it. So um, there will no longer be any vessel to wait for, right?
Yes.
For import containers, we had BL numbers that this shipment is found, and all the information and status will be found with this BL number in in terminal systems and shipping line systems. You can find the information with BL number. But for export shipments, you have another number called booking number. And inside the shipment, you can see the booking number in this part. We have other dates here, like drop by. So for export shipments, you have to pick up the load from warehouse. But for import shipments, you have to drop the load. You don't have to pick up the load, you have to drop the load. So instead of filling the date in this part, you have to fill this part for import shipments as the date that you have to deliver or drop the load in customer warehouse. This is the only difference between export and import shipment in pickup pickup or delivery date. Let me show you. Um, you see here, beside terminal appointment, we have delivery or pickup appointment. So pickup appointment is for export shipments, and delivery appointment is for import shipments. We have two shipments, one one export and one import. So for export, this means we have at this time we have to drop the load, and for import shipment, this date means that we have to. Um, I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. For export shipment, we have to pick up the load at this date, and for import shipment, we have to drop the load at this time and date. Cutoff date. So for import shipments, as long as the container is inside the yard of the terminal, we had a date for LFT. You know what LFT means. We have a similar date for export shipments. So um, for for import shipments, we had a vessel that was bringing the loaded container to the yard of the terminal for us to pick up. For export shipment is exactly uh, the opposite. So there is a vessel waiting for export shipments, for export containers. to get loaded, and the loaded container comes to the terminal yards, and they have to put the loaded container on the vessel, on the board of the vessel, and vessel has to take it to the destination, which is another country. So this vessel is not going to wait for us forever. It has a specific date that the vessel is going to leave the LA port. So they give us an ultimatum. They give us a date that we have to, before that date, before this date of cutoff, we have to find an empty container in a terminal yard, take it to the warehouse of the customer. They have to load it, and then before reaching the date of cutoff, we have to return the container. Once it is loaded, we have to return the container to the terminal, and then they will put the loaded container on the vessel, and it will leave. So this is exactly the opposite of LFD for import shipments. For import shipments, we have a date that before that we had to pick up the pull the container from terminal. For export shipments, we have a date that we have to take the loaded container to the terminal before reaching that date. If if we miss that date and we don't return the loaded container, the vessel will go. The customer loses its export cargo, and we will just face a huge amount of expenses and charges and huge loss. So this date is so important to pay attention to. And it also can be checked on terminal websites through sending shipping lines emails and asking for the cutoff, and so on. So we can check it with terminals and shipping lines.
Okay.
Um, in the next part, you see these two boxes, note boxes. The first one is basically for all the information that dispatch need related to dispatch, and which is called ship. I think it's short for shipment. The next box is bill, and it should contain all the information that is related to accounting department. So um, once you have any note regarding this shipment, you can just add it to this part, and anyone that opens the shipment has to read these notes. So he has all the information and all the steps that were taken for this container.
Okay.
Um, so the next part is this middle one, which we don't have anything to do with because it's all related to accounting department. So I'm not going to explain this part because it's all the details of the expenses and charges that we are going to hold for uh, our customer. It's all related to accounting. But the most important part of the shipment is this last one, all these legs here. So you see, we have different rows here. Each of these rows are called legs. So the first leg, and you see in the first column, hook, drop, dismount, and so on. We have other types of legs too. So you want to know what type this leg is, you have to check the first column. This first one is called hook. The next one is drop, and I'm going to just explain each of these what each of these legs mean. Um, so we have gone through the procedure of picking the container, uh, dropping it in customer warehouse. We have gone through this process many times through these videos. So, uh, as you know, for example, for this export shipment, uh, the first step, the first thing that we have to do is to pick up an empty container from terminal. Um, let me explain something else before that. So in this part, you see every single step that was taken for this container. What we did with this container. Where did we pick it up from? Where did we drop it in? Where did we take it to in the next event? So basically, anything that we have done with this container is mentioned here. So, as I was saying, for export shipment, the first initial step is to pick up an empty container. So, in another word, we have to hook a container to our truck and take it, right? So,
Yes.
the place that we hook the container, we're basically hooking the container to the truck. Um, so the place that we hook that empty container for this export shipment is mentioned here. So the type of the leg is hook. The place that we took the empty container is mentioned here, and the city and the state is mentioned in this column. In the next part, you see arrive and depart time. So we have a driver. This is the name of a driver that picked up or hooked the this container from this location. This is the first step. So driver arrived at this location at this time and picked up the container, left this location at this time. So once again, the driver arrived, done and did his work, and left the location or departed that location at this time. Um, so, and these two parts means that tracker means the type of truck that this driver was using for this move, and this is short for confirmation. So basically, each dispatcher that is checking on that driver has to confirm that this move was completed. So this is done by a dispatcher that we confirm that the driver did this move completely. And each leg at the end has a part that you can add, and we can also add a note to it, just like these parts. But for this, you are adding a note specific to that leg. So after driver Jenner, for example, um, hooked that and this container, what did he do with it? He dropped it in ULS yard. It's one of our yards. So the next type of the leg is drop. So it is exactly the opposite of hook. So for hook, when we are picking off the container with the chassis, we are hooking the container and the chassis, and drop is dropping the container and the chassis in that location. So after the driver in this move picked up this container from this location, he dropped it in our yard. At this time he arrived, dropped it, and at this time he left the yard. And it is the date. Also, I almost forgot to say that this is the time of arrival and departure, and this is the date of it. So on 3rd of June, Jenner arrived at the yard, dropped this container, and left. So 3 days later, on 6th of June, Ricardo, another driver with another truck, hooked the container from this yard. So 3 days before we dropped it there. 3 days later, we hooked the container from the yard from the same location and dropped it in this location. So this location is basically um, our customer warehouse, our customer location. So what we did here was we pulled the container and dropped it in our yard, stored it for a couple of days, and then we got an appointment from our customer that at this date we have to drop the container at their yard. Um, you remember I told you about the two types of no, 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 forget it. And this is for that is for import shipments. Ricardo picked up the container from the yard, dropped it at this location in another city, Vernon, and left. So you see four legs here: bobtail, 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 bobtail. I think I explained it once. Bobtail means that uh, we drop a container. So basically, we have uh, our customer has a warehouse in a city. So uh, any time that we have a container, even if it's an import container, if it's an export container, we drop the container there. If it's a drop and pick type, we drop the container there and we'll leave. And then once they have another container to be dropped there, we take their container there. And the first container is unloaded now. We are ready to pick up the container and take it back to the terminal. So what we do is that we drop the new container in our newest move, pick up the old container that is already unloaded and ready to be picked up. We pick up that container and go. So we are going with a container and returning with another container. Um, if for any reason we drop a container in our customer warehouse or any other location and we return without any chassis or container, so basically only the truck is coming back, and the term for it is bobtail. So Ricardo took the container from our yard, take it to took it to Vernon to this location, and returned without any container. He returned only with his truck, without any container or chassis. It happened on 6th of June, and then so basically these two, if we want to um, show that Ricardo came back, or a driver came back, uh, bobtail. And this is the way that we show on Profit Tools. We have to make two legs, not just one leg. It is just because of the type of the software. It is coded like this. We have to make two legs for to show that bobtail happened one time. Um, Okay, so 2 days later, another driver um, also bobtailed there. You see, um, it was it was the move of Ricardo, and he finished his move with bobtail. So he took the container there and came back without any container or chassis. In another word, he came bobtail. He came back bobtail. But the next driver started his move with bobtail, which means he didn't take any container with himself to Vernon or the warehouse of the customer. We The
Oh,
only reason that our driver was going to that location was that our customer was informing us that the container is loaded, it is ready. We have to return it to terminal before the cutoff date.
okay.
Okay, all clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Oscar, this driver, on 8th of June, went bobtail to this location again, hooked the container and another type of leg, dismounted the container on the in WBCT terminal. So um, I remember I explained dismount. We are going to just review on that again. We had two terms, dismount and mount. So dismount means that uh, at this location, at WBCT, we went there and we dropped only the container, not the chassis. We didn't drop the chassis. We only took the container off the chassis, left it in the terminal, and we left the terminal with the chassis and took the chassis somewhere else. So uh, we departed from WBCT and dropped the chassis in this location. This is everything that happened for this container so far. Actually, it's happening today. It's a move for today. So these dates are have not been filled yet, but basically these legs are showing you every single thing that has happened so far for this container.
Okay.
Okay, so this the look of the shipment is always like this. So if you know each of these parts, what each of these parts are going to show you, you can just read the data in every shipment. Um, just a few a few important parts are left, and okay, for import shipments, we the the first thing that makes us responsible as a trucker to start our job as a trucking company is to receive and work order for from the customer. And it's a document, it's a paper, can contain some data of the shipment, the type of cargo, the weight of the cargo, and so on. Um, or for export shipments, we receive a delivery order. The name of the document is just different, but it has all the information regarding the weight of the cargo, the type of the cargo, the container number, and book for export shipments. We receive the booking number to track the booking and the cutoff of the the book. I'm sorry, the
A
cutoff
seal
of
number.
the book number.
A
So
seal number.
uh,
Seal.
Yeah, yeah.
Seal
For
number.
exactly. So if we want to see that document for this shipment, we go through this part, this image, this option that says imaging. You see deliver order because it's an export shipment. You see all the information here about the name of the vessel, the weight of the the shipping line, and pickup location, delivery location, and yeah, all the information about that, um,
Uh,
about shipment. Uh, one
that
more
means,
important.
Gary. That means
Yeah,
import for import shipment we need work order. And for export shipment we need delivery order.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine that you have a task. You make a change in the shipment. For example, in here, you write something, you add a note, or change the leg, update the legs here, or anything. You change anything inside the shipment. You have to make sure that the changes are saved. So if you do any changes, if you make any changes in the shipment, you have to make sure that before closing that shipment, you click that save. And once you click on it, you usually close the shipment, and that's it.
Okay.
The first shipment that we were looking at was an export shipment. This one is an
Import.
import shipment. So basically, all the information is the same. The only difference is that we don't have any booking number here anymore. And okay, one thing that we have here, you see that uh, driver hooked the container from terminal, dropped it in the yard, and then in another day, picked it up from the yard and delivered it to our customer warehouse. So if it was a drop and pick movement, and this leg was not delivered, it was like this drop and pick. We hooked from the yard, dropped in the location, and then once the container was empty, we sent another driver, hook the container, and drop it in the terminal. But this is deliver, and it is trying to say that we didn't drop the container in customer warehouse. Our driver went there with the container, stayed until warehouse unloads the container, and returned with the same container. So he went there, stayed until they unload the container, and returned with the container. So no drop and pick was happening here. He delivered the load. He
Live,
delivered the car.
live
Uh,
unload. Gary.
exactly, live unload. He delivered the cargo. It was a live unload, which means that the driver stayed there until the cargo was unloaded from the container and returned with the empty container.
Yeah.
So all the rest of the information are exactly the same as the export shipment. And if you want to check the TMP number or the shipment number for this shipment, you can look it up in here. Um, yeah, that's it. Do you have any question?
No, right now I have no question.
Okay, then.
But I have understand the all the process what I have to do in the future.
Okay, so even after the video, if you have any questions, if you need to talk about any part of this, just send me a message and we will check on it.
Yeah, sure,
That was
sure.
everything I was going to explain in this video. Uh, and we're finished now. I will see you uh, in the next part. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Karim.
Okay then. I have to